this is the Provoked Prawn, and here I'm comparing the Razer Basilisk Ultimate with the Roccat Kone XP Air. These are two fantastic wireless gaming mice with, as you can see, some very nice aesthetics and also some comparable specs and things of interest that make them worth talking about. Now, they both have some slightly different setups in terms of the design and also what's going on with the button layout, the programmability, and some of the features that aren't immediately obvious when looking at them. I've unboxed and reviewed both of these mice, and I'll link to those videos in the description, so be sure to check that out to find out more about them and an in-depth look at both the mice and the software. But in this video, I'm going to talk to you about what I like and don't like about both of these mice and which one's nicer. I'm also going to do a sound test at the end so you can hear the difference between them, because I've heard people ask whether the Kone XP has a very loud mouse wheel, and so you'll be able to get a taste of the comparison between the two at the end. As you can see, the Basilisk Ultimate is quite a stealthy looking affair, and yet has some interesting RGB lighting. It has 14 customizable zones thanks to that RGB strip down the side. It also has this very ergonomic shape to it, similar to the Logitech G502 Lightspeed. The Kone XP also has a nice shape to it, a very good fit in the hand, and I'll show a comparison of what they look like in the hand later on. Now, the Kone XP Air comes with this little charging dock, which has a convenient little place to put your USB dongle. This is 2.4 gigahertz, and it has a USB-C cable that plugs into the back of that. Important point of note is that the mouse has a USB-C port on it as well, so you can plug it in and use it in wired mode if you want. But the purpose of this is obviously for charging. Now, you'll see that you can slip the little dongle on the underside when not in use if you want to take it with you somewhere and then use it that way. So a good little storage option. But the point of this charging dock is essentially means you no longer need to plug it in. It has 100 hours of battery life in theory, depending on how much of the RGB lighting you're using. And obviously, you get a nice bit of RGB glow on your desk from the charging dock as well. It's worth noting that the Kone XP Air has both Bluetooth and 2.4 GHz wireless. I say that because the Razer Basilisk Ultimate doesn't have a Bluetooth connectivity, but it does have some interesting features of its own. It too has a little dock for its USB dongle on the underside, and you'll notice that it also has a number of other buttons, a power button and a button to switch between profiles, and also it has its own little charging dock with a micro USB connection. So that's micro USB instead of a USB-C. So there are some differences between them already, as you can see. Specs-wise, I'm going to leave all of those in the description, but the Basilisk Ultimate is a fantastic mouse and a real highlight, one of my favourites. A really nice, comfortable mouse with some great specs. 20,000 max DPI, 650 IPS, 50 Gs acceleration, and also an interesting setup that allows you to swap out one of the side buttons for a sensitivity clutch or a multi-function paddle. You can see the Kone XP Air is also a magnificent mouse for a number of different reasons. It has 15 programmable buttons for a start, and also you can program those with a secondary layer of actions, which means that you can have up to 29 different actions in programmability. So that's pretty impressive. The Razer Basilisk Ultimate has 11 buttons by comparison, so not quite as many, but you can do some customization within Synapse and make use of things like Hypershift, and that can be beneficial. You can see the two mice here side by side to get a better view of what they're like and how they sit together, and I'll show you a few different shots of that so you can get a close-up look of how they look in the hand and the shape. But you'll see the ergonomic differences between them. They both have a sort of jutting out thumb rest, although the Kone XP is quite different because it has a little button on it, and that's the easy shift button. So if you press and hold that button, you can then program the other buttons on the mouse to have a secondary layer of actions for different button presses, and that includes things like macros and other things. So that's quite interesting, although I feel like that is a bit low in terms of its placement, because trying to press that and then press the side thumb buttons can be a fiddle, but I talked about that more in the review. Now, neither of these is particularly lightweight. You can see that the Basilisk Ultimate comes in at around 109 grams. That is with the dongle inside though, so just for fairness, I'll remove that and show you the weight there. But neither of them is really pitched at being super ultra light. Certainly not the heaviest that I've tried, but not the lightest either. You can see it's actually 107 grams with that 2.4 gigahertz dongle removed, and without the Kone XP Airs, that's about 99 grams. So ever so slightly lighter. And I must say, actually, you do notice that it is a little bit lighter. And when I pick them up and compare them in my hand, I feel like the Basilisk Ultimate is a better build quality. It feels like a better build quality. And I think that's because you have less weight in the Kone XP Air. Now, it's worth noting that Roccat has managed to shed weight from this mouse while then also jamming in Bluetooth and wireless connectivity. So that's pretty impressive that it is reasonably lightweight and also has a battery and other things in it. So it's pretty clever. You'll see that it has left and right click on the mouse wheel and a nice glow from there. And you have multiple side buttons, which gives you plenty of options. They also stick out really nicely. And you'll see that also there's a textured grip down the side there, although it is a plastic grip rather than the rubberized textured grip that you'll see on the Basilisk Ultimate, which you can see here. Now on the Basilisk Ultimate, you can also pop off that front cover and put on this little paddle. It's a pretty interesting design, rather than the classic sniper button that you'll see in other mice, where it basically gives you a DPI adjustment. You have this paddle instead, which can be a multi-function, but I really like the design of it, the way it sort of sticks back towards the rear, and you press that rather than pushing it in near the buttons. So it actually gives you much easier access to the buttons, and the side buttons are a lot nicer. Also, as you can see, the thumb rest is a little bit larger, which means you have a bit more convenience in terms of the fit there, and also just the comfort. I feel like that's a bit nicer. However, I will say that I personally feel that the Kone XP Air is a little bit larger in the hand. Very small difference there. Now, one of the other big differences that isn't immediately obvious is the scroll wheel. So the Basilisk Ultimate has an adjustable resistance scroll wheel. On the underside, you can roll that little wheel there and adjust how much resistance the mouse gives you. You then get more feedback from the mouse wheel and you can really feel it, or you can adjust it the other way and it will spin with very little resistance. So that's pretty interesting. That's not something you can do on the Kone XP. However, what I will show you later on in a second is that the Kone XP Air is a little bit quieter in terms of the mouse wheel usage, and probably my preference because of it, although obviously having the ability to adjust your mouse wheel is pretty neat. Now, both mice have nice PTFE feet on the underside, and as you can see, they will slip around on the desk fairly easily. I haven't had an issue with either of them, and I really do think they're both fantastic for that. There's one thing to note is that the Roccat Kone XP Air has optical switches, so it uses Roccat's Titan optical switches, so you have an optical setup where it will measure the clicks based on that. And that's brilliant because that means that those switches will last longer, and they're also really responsive in terms of the button presses and the registering of that. The Basilisk Ultimate uses Razer's optical mouse switches, which give you a 0.2 millisecond response time and 0 double clicking issues, up to 90 million clicks in terms of lifespan as well. So both should do really well in terms of longevity, and also the response that you get from them. Certainly haven't had any issues myself. Really responsive, fantastic for fast-paced gaming. I also feel that there's very little travel in any of the buttons on either of these mice, and so you get really good feedback from both of them. So now I'm going to leave you with a sound test. Stick around to the end to hear which mouse is my favourite. Hopefully that's been a good overview of what both mice are like. I personally prefer the Roccat Kone XP. I think it's a nicer mouse simply because it's slightly larger, has more programmability in terms of the buttons, and it has a much more convenient charging dock. The dock is really easy to put your mouse on. I found the Basilisk Ultimate one to be a little bit fiddly. I've had the same problem with that small charging dock with other Razer mice as well. Can be a bit of a faff to get it on. As you can see, the Kone XP is much easier. USB-C charging is nice as well if you have to plug it in. Less faff than micro USB. However, there's a lot to say about the Basilisk Ultimate. Fantastic specs. Again, those will all be in the description if you want to compare the two in that way. And as you can see, a much stealthier look also with those rubberized side grips is fantastic too. Hopefully you found this video useful. Big shout out to my YouTube members who help support the channel. Click that join button to find out more of the benefits of being a member. Thanks very much for watching. This has been The Provoked Prawn. Hope you found this video useful, interesting, hilarious, or otherwise. Take a look at these other videos that I think you might find interesting as well. And have a look at the description for links and other information you might find useful. Click that join button to see the benefits of being a member of my YouTube channel. And most importantly, have a great life.